Welcome to the Psycho Podcast by Matrix of Wellbeing. In our Today episode, we'll talk about the newest research on loneliness and its link to our health.
Do you ever get the feeling that loneliness is kind of all around us? Like it's everywhere. Even though we're supposed to be, more connected than ever. And it's not just like, oh, I feel a bit lonely today. What if I told you it could be affecting our health in some serious ways? That's what we're going to dig into today. Like really unpack this whole loneliness thing and how it affects our bodies way beyond what you usually hear.
Definitely.
So to do that, we're diving into this huge study
is right.
from the UK Biobank.
Yeah, the UK Biobank.
And this thing is massive. Almost 500,000 people tracked for over a decade.
Yeah, over 10 years
And they
of
looked
data.
at everything. I mean everything. Mental health, heart problems, infections, you name it. They probably studied it.
It's pretty amazing, the scope of this thing.
Yeah. And at first it seemed like loneliness was this giant red flag. Like if you were lonely, you were way more likely to have all these health issues.
It was linked to a lot, yeah.
But then they did this really cool thing. Instead of just saying loneliness is bad, they took it a step further.
They did, yeah. And this is where it gets really
They
interesting.
used this method called Mendelian randomization.
Yeah, it's kind of a mouthful, Mendelian randomization.
So, break it down for us. What is
Okay,
that?
so imagine this. You eat a peanut butter sandwich and you get a stuffy nose. Okay, does that mean peanut butter causes stuffy noses? Not necessarily. Exactly. Maybe you're allergic to dust and you always eat peanut butter sandwiches in a dusty
Great.
old attic. Right. Mendelian randomization is like the detective work to figure out if it's really the peanut butter or something else going on.
It helps us see if things are actually connected or just kind of show up together.
So, how do you use that for loneliness?
Well, they looked at our genes, like way down on our
Okay.
DNA. They asked, do certain genes make some people more prone to feeling lonely?
Interested?
And if so, are those same genes also linked to, say, heart disease or diabetes or something?
I see.
It's like peeking into our biological code to see if there's a real connection.
Wasn't a direct
Yeah.
link.
Or if it's more like that peanut butter and dust situation. Just a coincidence.
So what did they find? Was it the peanut butter or the dust?
Okay, get ready for this. Because it's kind of a
Okay,
shocker.
hit me.
For most of the diseases, they looked at like 20 out of 26, including big ones like heart disease, diabetes, stuff like that direct link to loneliness. Gone. Wait, gone? You're saying loneliness was off the hook for all those?
Not so fast. It's not that simple.
Of course not.
There were still 6 diseases where that connection, that causal link, it stayed strong.
Okay, so which
Things
ones?
like hypothyroidism, asthma, depression, sleep apnea, substance abuse, and hearing loss.
Interesting. So it's not that loneliness is harmless, it's just...
More complicated than we
yeah,
thought.
that's usually how
Exactly. It's never simple, is
Okay,
it?
I am hooked. We've got this massive study, genetic detective work, a plot twist. Where do we even go from here?
It's like, when you get a runny nose, it's not always about what you ate, right? Sometimes it's a sign you're getting sick, like maybe a cold is coming on. Loneliness could be kind of like that. Instead of being the actual problem, it's a symptom of something else going on. Exactly. A symptom, not the main culprit.
So, like a warning light flashing on the
Yes,
dashboard of our life.
Exactly that. Like the check engine light doesn't tell you exactly what's wrong, but it's saying, hey, pay attention. Something needs a look.
So, what kind of stuff might we find under the hood, so to speak, when that loneliness light is flashing?
Well, I think back to those 6 diseases where the link was still strong. One of them was depression. Right. And we know when people are struggling with depression, they often isolate
yeah,
themselves.
it's harder to reach out. Connect.
Exactly. So is it the loneliness causing the depression or the other way
It's
around?
that chicken or the egg thing again.
Totally. And it's not just mental health either. Think about things like where you live, your financial situation, even access to education.
Oh, wow, yeah.
All those can play a part in how socially connected people feel.
Making them more vulnerable to loneliness.
Exactly. And you know what else? Those same things. They're also linked to a higher risk of all sorts of health
It's
problems.
like this tangled web, isn't it? With loneliness, just one piece of a much bigger picture.
You got it. And you know what's amazing? When they really dug into the data, they found those other factors. The depression, the economic struggles, even unhealthy habits. Those things explained almost 80% of the link between loneliness and those health issues.
80%. Seriously. That's huge.
It is huge.
So it's not about saying loneliness doesn't matter. It's more like it's often a sign that some other stuff needs attention too. It's like that saying, it's not about the nail.
Exactly. And this is actually really good news.
Really? How so?
Because it means we're not powerless, right? It gives us a way forward, a path to actually do something about it.
Also, instead of just trying to make ourselves not lonely, it's about addressing all these other factors too.
Yeah. Instead of just putting a Band-Aid on loneliness, we can tackle the root causes. We can work on building stronger connections, addressing those mental health concerns, and even tackling those bigger social issues that contribute to isolation.
That's so much more empowering, right?
I think so.
It's like we're not just stuck with this loneliness epidemic. We can actually take charge, focus on well-being in a much broader sense. But how do we apply all of this to our everyday lives? I mean, our listeners are probably thinking, okay, this is all fascinating, but what does it mean for me? Right here, right now, it's almost like we need to listen to our loneliness.
Yeah, that's a really good way to
like
put it.
Instead of just feeling bad about it, we can treat it as a signal. Like our bodies are trying to tell us something.
Exactly. Instead of just thinking, I'm lonely, it's like, okay, what's going on here? What might this be connected to in my life?
So it's not about forcing ourselves to go to every party or anything.
It's not about just being more social on the surface.
It's more about, like you said, figuring out the why behind it.
Exactly. And everyone's why is going to be a little different,
Totally.
right?
So how do we even start to figure out our own why, our own patterns?
Well, you can start by asking yourself some questions. Like, when do you feel most lonely? Is it when you're stressed? Is it certain times of year? Or maybe when you're around certain people?
Oh, interesting.
It's like that thing doctors always ask, how long has this been going on? Right. Sometimes just noticing those patterns can be so revealing.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's not about drawing on the past or anything, but sometimes looking back helps you see things in a new light.
Absolutely. It can help you connect the dots, and then you can start to think about, okay, what do I need? Maybe it is about strengthening your support system or finding healthy ways to manage stress. Maybe it's about addressing some deeper emotional stuff that's been going on.
Wow. So we started with this deep dive into loneliness, and it's become this whole roadmap for well-being, basically.
I love that, because it really is about so much more than just loneliness, isn't it?
Exactly. It's about understanding ourselves better, taking care of ourselves in a holistic way.
And, one of the things that really excites me about this research is that it opens up so many possibilities for the future.
Oh, totally. Like what kind of possibility?
Well, imagine if we could figure out how different types of loneliness, like feeling emotionally disconnected versus feeling socially isolated. Imagine if we understood how those might affect our health in different ways.
Well, that's fascinating.
Right. Because loneliness isn't just one thing. It's this whole spectrum.
And if we could understand those nuances, then we could provide better support.
Exactly. Right? It's like, instead of just having one solution for loneliness, we could create all these different strategies to help people feel truly seen and heard and connected.
Wow, that's a really beautiful vision. So what I'm taking away from all this is a sense of hope, honestly.
I hate
Like loneliness, yeah, it's real, it's powerful, but it doesn't have to control us. By understanding it better, by listening to our bodies, by addressing those root causes.
Supporting each other?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can create a future where everyone can thrive.
I love that.
That is all the time we have for today's deep dive into the complex world of loneliness. Big thanks to you for breaking it all down with us. It's been enlightening, to say the least.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, if you're listening out there and any of this resonated with you, you're not alone. Reach out to someone you trust. Talk to a professional if you need to. Let's keep these conversations about mental and social well-being going.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring.